Do you know someone, or are you personally battling a drug and alcohol addiction? Why are so many people addicted today? And why have so many people died as a direct result of this disease? If you've been affected by this problem and want answers like we do, then join us in our efforts to face this disease. Our purpose is to examine the truths, expose the lies, and uncover and provide resources to this affliction. Come, join us in this journey.
I was 26 years old. I was sitting in my truck in the parking lot of a movie theater getting high.
I was an outcast my whole life, like I didn't know where I belonged.
Knocking my head against the wall over and over and over again.
So I came to Narcotics Anonymous. I heard a message that made my ears pop.
People who I can relate to and identify with. Managed to heal relationships, start families, and be happy with life.
Drug problem? We can help. We've been there. Narcotics Anonymous.
Welcome to Addiction and Recovery TV. I'm your host, Charlene DeChico, and today in the studio I am joined with a very special guest, Mr. Vincent Castiglia. Vincent is an artist originally from Brooklyn, New York, and Vincent's going to talk to us today about his documentary, Bloodlines, the Art and Life of Vincent Castiglia, and also a little bit about his story. So please help me welcome Vincent.
Thank you so much, Charlene. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Vincent. What an amazing story that you have, and the documentary, Bloodlines, the Art and Life of Vincent Castiglia. I mean, remarkable, incredible.
Thank you so much. Pain is a great motivator. The work was initially inspired by, my life circumstances. It was the most effective way to dissociate from my environment and find a kind of a new way to live, a new way to
an outlet,
think,
right?
An outlet. And that's what it began as, and that's what it continued as through adulthood until, somewhere around 18, things got really serious.
With your art and your craft.
Art. Yeah.
So I'm talking with Vincent, and we're talking about his life as an artist. And you may just think this is another artist from New York City, Brooklyn, be the case, but this is not the case. Vincent's story is quite unique because there was a lot of, let's say, frustration, anger, a lot of underlying factors that were breeding this gift, this amazing talent that Vincent has, and so his art is different. Sometimes blood is shed in these fits of anger. And in your case, in the movie, we see where you kind of just, punch the wall, blood was shed, and so herein lies this new birth of like something else, this outlet that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would you say that's like when you really, like, the writing on the wall was like the blood on the wall?
Mm.
That's...
Yeah, it was literally the writing on the wall for me. And it was a very real pivot point during which I started working in my blood exclusively. Right. I had worked in pen and ink prior to that, these delicately detailed pen and ink drawings. And my subject matter was, what I was trying to communicate in terms of what was happening inside was translating well in terms of subject matter, but the medium, there was some disconnect. It's always coming out of a tube or a piece of, or a pen or whatever. And when I worked with blood for the first time in a creative way, in an artistic way, I really just fell in love. It was there for the first time that a personal truth was communicated that could not be reproduced by any other means, and a catharsis that I experienced that I had not experienced by any other means prior.
So we're going to take a look at some of this artwork that Vincent has created in using his own blood. So
Here we have Vincent Castiglia. Hello, Vincent.
Hello.
Your artwork's really amazing. The truly unique thing about it is that you paint it in your own human blood.
That's right. Every painting is essentially a part of me, and I really sought to have that connection with the work. Beforehand, I'd been working in traditional media and didn't feel like I was really connecting on the deepest level possible. And when I started working in blood experimentally, I felt like I was onto it, and then started using it exclusively. You know, the work just took off. It was there that I really felt like what I was doing was accurately communicating what was happening inside.
What's the actual process of extracting your blood for the paintings?
It's similar to giving blood. If you were to take a blood test, the blood is collected into tubes, and those tubes are stored.
And you do it all yourself?
I do not collect the blood myself because it becomes complicated. You really need other hands for it.
Did it ever get messy?
It could.
I'd imagine that a painting like this would take a lot of blood.
The more saturated it is, the more layers I'm putting on the painting. Obviously, the more blood. The more opaque I work, the more blood. I couldn't give an accurate, guess in terms of ounces or pints or anything like that, but I can collect 15 to 30 tubes at a go, and I'll work with that for a certain period of time.
I actually really appreciate that you do it this way, and I can relate that you're putting yourself into the artwork. Have you ever drawn your blood as a reason of pain or depression?
In searching for a way to get out what I had inside and what I wanted to create, there was a bit of pain involved and a bit of pain necessary.
You're actually known for having an exhibition at the H.R. Geiger Museum.
That experience was amazing. I mean, it was one of the biggest, most mind-blowing events in my life and my career. It was a, childhood icon, art god, incredible.
Also, your art is the official poster for an MTV film, Savage County.
Correct. It premiered on MTV too. The poster was a depiction of the three characters in the film, which were the murderers.
You say that you maybe have experienced traumatic events, or how would you describe your childhood?
Yeah, it was not ideal, to say the very least. This is where I put it.
You say it's kind of a form of therapy for you?
Catharsis, definitely. Right now, I have no plans in terms of painting any type of series or so forth. Usually the paintings spring very much from where I'm at a particular time, and looking around the room, 10 years of work, retrospective, it's a pretty accurate visual delineation of really where I've been, and will probably continue along those lines.
Thanks a lot for your time, Vincent.
Vincent, do you remember your first blood painting? Outside of the writing on the wall, which, if I remember correctly, it said something like "Welcome to my hell" that you wrote in blood on the wall after, a fit of rage in your teenage years, right? Yeah. But then when you were actually bringing the pen or you said you used pen, and so then you actually created your first piece. And do you remember what that was?
Yeah, they were pen and ink and blood drawings, essentially, and they were mostly pen and ink with the backgrounds painted in blood. And I did that for about 2 years, solid, and then transitioned exclusively to working with blood.
Okay.
At that point, and it was, for lack of a better term, magical. There was a marked level of healing occurring and self-actualization, and art became the very real way that I related to and understood the world in a very specific way.
Sure. But let's just talk a little bit about the backstory. what's fueling the machine. And because this is something that I think our audience would really appreciate, I truly appreciate understanding that Vincent is someone, if you watch the documentary Bloodlines, you're going to really get an introspective of what I'm talking about. But you've overcome so many obstacles. I mean, you've lived a life that would be challenging to, you know, I don't know how many people could survive what you've gone through, and this fact that you're able to come through to the other side. I mean, yes, you had your art along the way to kind of, you know, like you said, the catharsis, and but you've had many trials and tribulations along the way. I mean, there has to be something that your takeaway and knowing, like, I'm still here after all of this. I'm still here.
And I mean, there's plenty of other evidence of that besides my body, and there's the body of work, which is really important to me. It is almost a kind of ethereal roadmap of my sojourns in this world, so to speak. It is my psyche is me turning my inside out. It's the depths of my psyche, essentially, for all to see. It's that honest, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not making anything that I think people would want to see in terms of trying to follow any kind of trend. I am the unpop. I'm the opposite of. I'm doing work that, again, might not be for everyone, but it's for some people.
Sure.
I mean, most people, it's like surgeons and doctors and such collect my work. And
is there a name for this type of artwork? I know the do you have a name for this type of art, or has society kind of come up with a name for this type of art? Or
I call it figurative surrealism.
Figurative surrealism.
And I also identify it as unpop.
Unpop.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Unpop figurative surrealism, because I'm dealing with unpopular topics.
Sure.
You know, not everyone wants to confront their mortality every single day by looking at a painting that begs of it.
Right.
You know, and it begs of it in the sense of, we're here for a really short amount of time. We're here for a cup of coffee and gone. We're that transient. So cherish the moment while you have it. It's kind of
well, do you think that each painting has its own emotion or tells its own story? I mean, is there a common
100%,
theme?
Yeah.
I look at the artwork and I see the similarity. As the audience is looking at it, you can see, maybe be able to identify, oh, that's a Vincent Castiglia piece. You can kind of, the aura or the essence of what your art is. But do you have a kind of identification, or would you say each piece is unique in its own? I mean, is there an underlying common denominator with your art? Not being rage, frustration, anger, creativity? I mean, how would you describe it?
It is, there's definitely an underlying theme, and it is an examination of the human condition.
Examination of the human condition. Yeah, I think we see that. I think that's why when you say doctors are so intrigued by it, because it is, you're really trying to look at something that most of us don't consider.
Yeah, and there's hope there. The common thread throughout the work, including the decay and the mortification, is the wellspring of hope that's kind of oozing out of many pieces. I mean, people can see the light in the work despite the decrepitude. There are inspiring overtones, you could say.
Well, I would say the light in the work has even something to do with this. The fact of the matter is that this art was kind of the saving grace almost, in that, you know, you went through all of these things and now you're creating these masterpieces. Do you feel that, like, in a way, it's the price that you had to pay to, you know, to have this type of greatness be released throughout, you know, from literally from your veins?
Absolutely. Nothing's free in this life.
Right.
You know, I paid for that with my life. But I still have a life. You know, I have a new one. And, art has been such a tremendously introspective and I'll use the term self-actualizing again, because I posed questions,
Right.
through the work. I'm examining myself and looking inside, and with as much curiosity as maybe a viewer, because I'm posing real questions and getting real answers through the work, if that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, that's I think it raises so many questions. And you look at the pieces. I mean, I look at the pieces and I say, what's the message? What is the artist trying to tell us? Now, tell us one of your, I guess, favorite pieces. The piece that really speaks to you the most. Would you tell us what that is?
Well, in terms of current work, that would be the acceptance of death and the transmigration of consciousness.
Okay.
The work is essentially, it depicts a figure who is at the moment of death, and he is exhaling this last breath, or his energy, his essence,
right,
into this continuum. Now, I mean, I entertain my own all-inclusive, maybe strange belief system. I'm not religious. I don't identify as anything, but the religion and the occult interest me tremendously, and I entertain the notion of karma. I entertain the notion of reincarnation, not in the Eastern sense, but in terms of us being each a sliver of consciousness that is part of the whole. And it's kind of like a hologram where the whole is reflected in the sliver.
Sure.
And so the whole of nature and the whole of the human condition is reflected in each life. And from that, I'm sharing my inner experiences in a really specific way and using my blood to do it. It's like becoming artwork. That's the best way I could explain it.
Sure.
I'm translating my tissue into art, which is pretty magical to me. It's like the biggest or the most magical kind of transformation possible to become art.
I mean, that's the point, like, I wanted to talk about is, when you talk about, not religious but spiritual, obviously there has to be a spiritual awakening of sorts, of knowing just what you've come through. I mean, you talk a little bit about it in your documentary of how many times you had near-death experiences.
Sure.
Your life was at stake on more than 1, 2, 10, 20 occasions, safe to say. So that in of itself, hundreds, to still be alive and to still have made it through speaks volumes. There's definitely, when people say do I have a purpose? Why am I here? Obviously, there's a reason why you're still here.
Thank you.
And you're fulfilling that purpose. I mean, this art, this creativity, this energy, I admire and respect your work. I think that it's amazing that you can come from this place of pain and hardship and then channel that through that light and love, or experience life, death, like just taking that long and windy road and then just coming up and like, here's amazingness through it all.
Thank you.
And so I think if you're able to check out the documentary, Bloodlines, the life and artwork of Vincent Castiglia, and you see the art that we're showing today, we're going to show you a clip of the film, that you can appreciate your life on a whole new level, but then also appreciate the life of Vincent Castiglia. I mean, you have an amazing story, but what I wanted you to really kind of maybe talk to the audience about is that you're someone who's gone through some stuff, and you know how hard some things in life can be, and you're able to still keep going. You didn't give up, you didn't throw in the towel, you're not out of your mind in some institution somewhere, and you're still giving it a go. And I think that just gives so much hope. It gives so much hope to me. And so maybe there's someone out there that's struggling that you could speak to say, hey, listen, I don't know, but I do know, and I'm doing the best. If you can do it, right?
For sure. And what I can say about that is, had I not been engaged in this recovery process, I'd be dead a long time ago.
So you attribute a lot of your this life of stability that you have today through a recovery, a 12-step program?
Yes, I do. And, I actively engage in a recovery program. And for me, it's been a combination, I will say, of recovery.
Hold one sec. Oh my God. Sorry.
That's okay.
So just go from, there's been a recovery process.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the recovery process that's come to work for me over the course of 20 years is, meetings,
Okay.
medication, and therapy.
And your art, right?
And my
you have
art.
this outlet of
Well,
art.
aside from the art is the kind of raw, the visceral catharsis.
Okay.
But outside of that,
Okay.
meetings, medication, and therapy
Help.
is a really important structure
Okay.
because I'm not impervious. I'm not Superman.
Right.
I've come through a lot, and I live with a lot.
Right.
But I appreciate and am grateful for life, and I have done the best I can. I'm really doing the absolute best I can, and trying to honor this second, third, 100th chance I've gotten by continuing to give it my all in terms of my work, in terms of recovery, in terms of life, and my dealings with people and so forth.
That's awesome. Well, here...
there's something else I would like to say.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And maybe you could just cut that out and
Sure.
just make it more fluid.
Yeah.
But recovery has not been a straight line for me.
Okay.
To anyone out there that's struggling and thinks that, you might never get it or there's no hope, there's hope. And you just have to surrender to it. I got clean for the first time in 1999, and I
Wow.
put together 3 years, and I had relapsed after that, and relapsed and relapsed and relapsed, because I was living with some really atrocious circumstances that, for maybe someone else, I think someone might have checked out.
Sure.
A long time before that, but drugs were my anesthesia.
Right.
I never was, really having a good time. It was anesthesia.
Numbing anesthesia,
numb.
yeah.
And I don't, thankfully today I'm not living that way. And, so once again, anyone that's struggling, anyone that has had a hard time getting and staying clean, it doesn't mean that you can't. It is possible, but you can't do it alone.
Sure. Well, here at Addiction and Recovery TV, we appreciate the story and the life of Vincent Castiglia, and we want to give you a moment to take a check. So, as you can see, this film is very intense, and there's a story to be told here. So, continue to watch this film in its entirety by the information that's provided, and let us know some feedback. And if you want to contact Vincent, you have his information, and through watching the documentary, maybe there's some of that artwork that you would like to purchase because it's inspiring you, it's moving you. And we just want to kind of wrap up, Vincent, with like, what's on the horizon? What do you got going on? What do you see for the future? How are you kind of dealing with life today and with your art?
I'm going to keep producing, and it's going to continue to be the most honest encapsulation of where I am at any given point in time. Because the work really will reflect that, or what I'm interested in, what I'm researching. And, the next one that I have lined up is going to be called The Possibility of Love.
The Possibility of Love.
And
that sounds very hopeful.
It
It
is.
sounds light. It sounds
It is.
refreshing.
very different than a lot of my other work, but visually will have a similar aesthetic. But yeah, so again, for anyone out there struggling, you know, think that there's no hope. I had no hope at one point in time, none. And you know, I got a good deal of it today. And
that's amazing.
That's, you know, it was, you know, my art saved my life, truly and entirely. But again, the recovery process, had it not been there, it equally saved my life. You know, it was a combination of it. So I encourage anyone to find their outlet, you know, too. And it might be, you know, part of it might be going to meetings, but part of it might be something else.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for tuning in Addiction and Recovery TV. Check out Vincent Castiglia. His artwork is amazing, and the documentary Bloodlines. And we'll see.
Okay, be dead.
Never have seen anybody doing it the same way exactly like Vincent before.
Completely blown away.
Intense.
Wow.
Every single aspect that you look in his piece, it's his life.
I think it's extraordinary.
You see his work, some of it is just bizarre.
When I met him, I knew immediately that I wanted to photograph him.
He's the demented offspring of Dr. Fu Manchu in The Incredible Hulk.
What are these people he paints?
Once I identified that imagery, the next step was the medium.
I think Vincent just has the perfect metal aesthetic.
Metalheads love blood.
I've been rendered in human blood.
It's one of those things that's kind of too big to get your head around.
Human blood being used to render human figures. I was expressing materially what I was experiencing internally. I've been through some dark times. I grew up with my mother. The situation was extraordinarily abusive.
Horrific way to grow up for a child.
I think it's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's like being murdered and your blood replaced with venom.
Wow, this guy's fucking ruined. He's gonna be ruined.
My way of dealing with things was auto-destructive.
I don't know many people that used like Vincent that are still alive.
I was trying to get as numb as I possibly could.
Drugs made him escape that pain that he was in.
He would call essentially to say goodbye.
He was on death's doorstep. Do I want to live or do I want to die?
This isn't working anymore.
Somebody can come out of an addiction. They've hit one hell of a home run.
Every time I think he puts blood to paper, a part of him, those memories, that pain kind of escapes with it.
With each piece, I felt good.
When your heart bleeds, it bleeds gold.
Vincent processes his fears through painting, and it makes him unique and alive.
My very first exhibition was at the H.R. Giger Museum, maybe where life started for me. For anyone going through something, hold on and things get better.
However that process is, well then, fuck yeah. You don't want to have Vincent give all his blood away, though, huh?
He's been in my life pretty much for as long as I've been out of prison.
It's compelling, it's taboo, it's amazing. That's blood and it's art.
It was a much deeper album. Vincent's contribution is a huge part of that.
It's very grand.
To me, a masterpiece.
This is my sacred space. That canvas is like the altar. This is how I pray. These are my prayers.